I was just in the middle of praying, and the Lord wanted me to stop and share this with you because I was just talking to the Lord, and just basically thanking Him for continuing to stay, continuing to love on me, continuing to press into me, never leaving me or forsaking me, no matter how many times I turned from Him, no matter how many times I turned my back on Him, disobeyed Him, disrespected Him, just chose everybody over Him in whatever I wanted to do, whatever pleased me at that moment, and the Lord never left. The times where the Lord could have taken my life, He didn't. He spared me. And I said, I know, Lord, that, you know, you had a purpose and a plan for my life, And then I just had a thought that, you know, I was like the only person who is valid for staying in a relationship where the person is, disrespectful, where the person is doesn't know any better, or the person, is not a good person. They don't hold up their end of the bargain. They don't put in as much effort as the other person does. And I said to myself, the only person who's validated for staying in a relationship like that is Jesus. Because no matter how many times we treat, him wrong, no matter how many times we're disobedient, no matter how many times we walk away, and no matter how many times we go astray, Jesus is always right there when we come back. But the Lord was like, even I have my limits. Even I have, my boundaries. And I'm not going to keep allowing you to disrespect me. I'm not going to keep allowing you to, you know, do what you want to do, say what you want to say, live the life that you're going to live. I'm going to basically let you go off and bump your head. I'm going to let you go off and, okay, you want to make that decision. You don't want to listen. You want to be disrespectful. You want to do what you want to do. Okay, fine. And God releases His hand off of us. And that's when we find ourselves going through trials and tribulations that are not God ordained. When we go through tests and trials that God has nothing to do with. And then that's when we look up to Him and we cry out for help, and we ask for the Lord's assistance. And so the Lord says, even I have my boundaries. Even I have, you know, where I'm fed up with you. And then it could get to a point where even after, we continue to bump our head, even after we continue not to listen, even after we continue to disrespect God, and just, He looks at our heart and He knows that we are not going to be willing to change no matter what. He will turn us over to a reprobate mind. And, you know, He just was showing me those people who, because we see a lot of people, wherever you stay. But where I stay, I see a lot of, people who are homeless, who talk to themselves, and just, you can see that they're living in this torment. And God said a lot of those people I've turned over to a reprobate mind. But it's not even that's the easiest example that I could give. But it's not just people who are homeless. It's people that it's people in your family, it's coworkers, it's supervisors, it's even spouses, even children, where God has said, okay, that's it. I'm done with you, you know. And we think that God waits until we die, till we pass away to He says, depart from me. On this side of earth, that looks like being turned over to a reprobate mind. And so once that happens, once God allows your heart to be hardened like He did Pharaoh, there's nothing that nobody can do. There's no prayer that you can pray for that person. There's no amount of fasting that you can do, no amount of nothing. When God is done with you, that's it, you know? And just like He was done with Saul, um King Saul. He gave him chance after chance, and he knew that Saul's heart was greedy. He knew that Saul cared more about the approval of the people than he did about being obedient to God. And that's why you got to be careful when you out here trying to please these people, when you're out here trying to just kill yourself and run yourself raggedy, trying to impress people, trying to do so much for them, trying to get them to see you, trying to get your praise down here on earth. I'm telling you from experience, where I ran myself to the ground, had so many health issues and ailments due to stress, trying to please other people because that's how I was raised. That's how I was groomed to serve and to other people and serve their needs and do things that pleased them and lifted them up, and the world could see them on this pedestal, this false pedestal. But I say all that to say that just like we don't want to be in relationships where we're constantly abused, where we're constantly talked down to, where the person doesn't put in any effort, we're doing all the work. God doesn't want to be in a relationship like that either. He wants us to give, you know, just as much effort. We know I know we can't do like what God does, and we can't, you know, bless or do things to the magnitude that he does, but we can pour back into him. We can pray to him. We can seek him. We can have a relationship with him. We can surrender to him. We can bless his people. We can rest in him, not just physically like going to sleep, but being intentional about the time that we spend with him, reading his word, just sitting up and having conversations with him. Just taking out 10-15 minutes to just sit and be still and talk to God, and he will talk back. I talk, you talk, I'll talk back. And so prioritizing your relationship with God above any and everything else. And you will start to see that eternal peace. You will start to see that rest. When people talk about the peace that passes all understanding, you don't know a peace like that until you've experienced it. Even when God instructs you to do hard things, and you might struggle with it, in the midst of that, you will have peace. And you know that that is the Lord talking to you. You know that that is the Lord showing up for you. And just like we don't want to be in those type of relationships, neither does God. So, just remember that when you think of the worst relationship you've ever been in, or you think of the time where the person that you trusted the most betrayed you or hurt you or did something that you don't like, remember how we treat our Father. And when you're stuck in your feelings about how somebody treated you and you struggle to forgive them, even if you deem what they did the worst of the worst, think about what you've done to the Father. Think about how many times you disrespected him. Think about how many times you slapped him in the face by your behavior. Think about how many times you didn't pray and he still blessed you. Think about how many times he covered you and you had nothing to do with him. Or you chose other things or other people or other vices over him, and he still stayed. But even God has his limits. So, I just want to share that with you.